Welcome to Explore, Explain, Highlights. In this Highlights package, we'll be looking at Season 5, Episode 1, with our guests Rebecca Conroy and Duncan Swain, discussing their project, The Value of a Studio.
We've thought long and hard over the last few years really about our messaging around what we do. So we have introduced this idea of we do broadly two things really, is data viz and it's information design, but all of that is in service to explaining abstract or difficult to understand subjects or sets of data. So I think that's one of the key changes. We've always had people coming to us for those two things. I mean, and sometimes people come either armed with data, or they want us to find data, or they have, information around what it is that they do, and how do you then kind of portray that? Because they often struggle to. We're working on a government project at the moment around a complicated idea and subject, and working hard to pick that apart and help them, because they're very close to it and they can't really see the wood for the trees, and they're not experienced at explaining these things, so we can help them get under the skin of it and then play it back to them in a way that a broader audience can understand. So I think that's kind of like one of the main differences in our approach to how we communicate what we offer and what we do.
I think infographics is the key term that people often used to. When we first started, everyone said they wanted an infographic, and a lot of things were static at the time. So we still occasionally get people asking for infographics, but I think people have definitely moved on, and there's a language now that clients understand as well as practitioners that starts, because for ages, I think when we were doing workshops, the first thing we did was trying to explain the difference between a data visualization and an infographic, so that people got the idea of what was different. So I think people are starting to understand kind of different ideas of the language, but it was the formats that were changing since we started. They're definitely much more varied now in terms of interactives and animations and dashboards and presentations, and not just sort of
I'm thinking back to 2014 and maybe the few years before that. Was that era of those terrible long tower infographics, 900 pixels wide, a million pixels long for embedding in Facebook, and they kind of thankfully disappear. I guess the equivalent now, which is not as as rubbish as that stuff was, is the kind of scrolly telling piece. But that's obviously got a lot more merit, I would suggest, overall. But I think that's a really interesting point about the maturing nature of the clients, and they kind of know a bit better what they're looking for. And I think language, is really important in all this. When we look at data viz maybe as a communication channel, well, writing is communication, and the elegance of language, the clarity of language, sometimes you want to flower it up to make it emotional, sometimes it's more instructive and detached, and the more I spend in this subject, the more I realise there's just so many things we can draw and deposit onto data viz as a thought process that, even if you're portraying recipes and instructions to make those recipes, it's still part of the same, maybe Venn diagram, if not the exact same cluster of activities. About yourself, Duncan, what would you kind of echo as your kind of backstory that led to this?
Yeah, so being involved in journalism is like structuring information to impart to other people, and just the things that I learned in magazine and newspaper journalism about the importance of headlines, subheads, captioning, all of those kind of things, all of that comes into play. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's something that we talk about a lot if we do workshops and things. It's data viz, it's a visual language, but it means that the words that you do use are super important. They've got to be super tight. Everything's got to be optimized. There are different ways of doing headlines. Do you give away the story in the headline? Do you tease the story in the headline? Whatever it is, but there's still the words that you structure around any kind of data viz are so important for helping people understand what is on the screen. So, and then also as Rebecca and I moved from she was in radio journalism and I was in print journalism, moving into that kind of digital online world, we got to play with a lot of different brands. I mean, we worked across Top Gear, Radio Times, so lots of TV listings information. We relaunched BBC News internationally, international versions of iPlayer, international versions of BBC Sport. So, having to structure all of that information in a digital format that, again, helps people understand, the information architecture that you're putting around stuff, all of that, it's just super important and has helped inform the things that we do now. So it's just picking all of that stuff apart, and then how do you bring it back together again to kind of inform this different type of work that we do now.
But
yeah, you're right. I mean, that's crucial for us, and it's part of the reason that words is in the title of our studio, because we go beyond words, but words are just so important.
The skills that we have are quite transferable, and I think we're good at creating and running teams, and I think that's why we would have always thought about it as a studio rather than something on our own, because we know that we can't do it. We've got quite complementary skills, but we can't do everything between us, and we need good people around us in order to do really, really good work. It takes it to that next level. So that's sort of my thinking.
Yeah, I think we'd worked very well together at the BBC, and the way we've always divided the things we do differently because we've got different skills but very similar values and kind of ambitions for what we want to do. And I always describe as Rebecca used to run interference for me at the BBC, so she was very good politically at dealing with obstacles, whereas I was just like a bull in a china shop, so could annoy people, I think. We'll get to some of that later on, I'm sure. But I always had like big creative ambitions and wanted to do things differently than BBC was doing things, and having Rebecca there, she was my boss at the time. She still is, really, but just allowed me to be able to do that. And so I think one of the things I learned there is that, and one of the things we're both quite good at, is recognising what we are good at. So there are some things that I am very, very good at, but it's a small set of things, and there are lots of things that I'm not very good at. So what I've always tried to concentrate on is trying to find people who are very, very good at what they do, and surrounding myself with those people who are very, very good at what they do, and allowing them to do it, because I can't do it. And so everything we do here is very much a studio effort. We're not particularly well known as individuals within the industry, because we don't ever push ourselves forward as individuals. Everything is kind of like studio projects. We don't identify individuals for work that's done here, because everyone touches things. So it's all about kind of finding people who are very good at what they do, which are lots of things that I can't do, and surrounding myself with them, and then empowering them to get on and do the things that they need to do good work.
I mean, we did used to spend a lot of time going around agencies and talking, because Duncan in particular pioneered using external design agencies within the BBC, which they didn't used to do. And so we wanted to try and find the best design agencies to help us design these websites that we were creating, and work with some really strong agencies out there. And I think learning from them and learning about that was really key.
Part of my career where I learned a lot, which was that key decision we made at the BBC to use external design, which seems like quite a small kind of decision, but then that led me to, and I think I visited over 100 agencies in UK, US, parts of Asia, Australia, trying to find who were the right global partners to do different things for us. Whether they're creating a video app to house iPlayer content and how that would be structured, or all of the different websites we wanted to launch in different countries. How did we relaunch Lonely Planet as a new kind of revolutionised digital entity? So, and allowing me, I always insisted on going to their offices, talking to the founders, and so we got to know a lot of different people and see a lot of different organisations operating in different ways, and it informed the size to which we wanted to grow, because we've kept in touch with lots of those founders now, so we can have good conversations with them about how things are going in their industries versus our industries. It all tend to be creative agencies or user experience agencies or different things like that, but that's really helped us kind of form an idea about what we wanted to do. And you don't realise at the time when you are doing these things, it seems like a chore to fly all the way to Australia to interview five.
We probably wouldn't do it now for climate anyway.
No. But it's just, but we were working in Australia anyway, so we could only plan it. So, you know, it's just formative things like that you don't really feel formative at the time. But for the BBC, it was quite revolutionary to do that kind of work, and it made the work that we do really effective, because we work with really, really good people who were doing really new, groundbreaking things in these digital arenas that were new at the time. So, yeah, it was
absolutely.
a very good experience.
What are the values that are important to you as an organisation?
We have quite a few. Well, no, there's about 8 or 10, but I think there's sort of there's things kind of within the studio, and there's the external, well, not external, but how we kind of work with people around us. So sort of the impartial honesty and transparency slightly comes from the BBC a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Well, that was sort of, impartiality was definitely a BBC kind of news element, but for data that's really important. But it also is if you're working with a client and you need to talk to them about timelines, or you need to talk about something, being honest and transparent is really key. I think there's something in our values about sort of trying to push the boundaries as well, and being creatively ambitious, and trying to be innovative. And even now looking at how we can use AI and things and all that sort of stuff, where is everything going? How can we keep being at the forefront of things while kind of retaining the foundation of our values as well?
Yeah, and then the focus on kind of quality and excellence. I know everyone would say that, and of course everyone says that, but that focus on quality and excellence, and trying to kind of instill that into everyone that works here. And one of the things that we always try and imbue in people is this need to make the thing that you are working on at any particular time as good as it can be before you pass it on to the next person. So it's trying to cross all the T's, dot all the I's, do all your checking, just get it as polished as you can make it before the next person sees it, because it means that they don't then have to kind of go back through your things and start picking up on things that might need to be improved or changed or tweaked or whatever.
Like a pride in one's work, a pride in one's craft, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, as Rebecca said, there are lots of things that we do for people around us or the world around us. So this is about giving something back to the community within our industry as a whole, and working with universities and things like that, and making sure our team is as inclusive as it can be, and as open to differences within people as it can be, and just basically these ideas of being thoughtful and considerate and kind to the people that work with you, and considering them and thinking about them. And I think one thing that a strength that Rebecca and I have come to realise after lots of kind of psychometric testing at the BBC and all those kind of things is that we have quite high IQ, and being able to sense in people around
EQ,
us. Sorry.
Maybe we've got IQ as well, but
definitely not. Maybe not IQ. EQ. Sorry. So
EQ,
having that. Yeah. So being able to sense if there are, if people are feeling differently about things or aren't feeling okay. So we're good at picking up on those things, I think, and helping them through it, and being reassuring to them, and just being thoughtful and kind and considerate is very important.
Thank you for joining us for this Explore Explain highlights episode. As always, the full episode is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We hope to see you again soon on another episode of Explore Explain.